Hey everybody, this is D'Angelo with Practice Biopsy again, and I've got an awesome guest today. This is Dr. Ankur Gupta of Northridge Family Dentistry. And the reason that I'm super excited to bring Ankur on the webinar today is because when I was a dental student, you guys all know that I started my practice pretty much straight out of school. When I was a second year dental student, Dr. Gupta came and talked to our school, and he told us about his startup and how he did it as soon as he got out of residency. And he was one of the first people that really got me thinking and believing, hey, I don't have to wait a super long time after I graduate to do my own thing. So, Ankur, go ahead and give yourself a little intro beyond that and tell us your story.
Sure. Thanks, D'Angelo. So my wife and I, we both went to University of Michigan. I don't know if you knew that, but we went we graduated a few years before you became a student there. And we did our residency at GPR pretty much just because neither of us felt ready to join like the ranks of real dentists. And while we were doing our residency, we were given this idea that we were going to do well in practice because we were nice enough people and hardworking, whatever. And one of our residency directors said, listen, don't waste your time being an associate, just open a practice, just open your own practice. You're going to do fine. It'll be fine. And so we found a space that was for rent in some small town outside of Cleveland. And we're like, all right, let's do it. Let's start a practice. We borrowed a ton of money and put some dental chairs in, compressors, suction, and we didn't know anything about how to run a business. All we did was know that you need dental chairs and you need to know how to do dentistry. We didn't know anything about marketing. We didn't know anything about consistent customer service, case presentation, leadership with our staff. And it was only, 4 or 5 years in, the two of us looked at each other like, dude, this sucks.
What are we doing?
Yeah, it sucked. I mean, she got a job at Aspen Dental because we just weren't making enough money. So she had to pay the bills. And I felt terrible because I thought, I was the one who put pressure on us to start this practice and it wasn't going anywhere.
You went in with all this confidence and like someone talked you up like, man, you can do it. And then all of a sudden
we had residency director. We had a guy who visited the residency. And all he would talk about, like his entire lecture, every time he came, was how rich he was. Like that's all he would talk about. He was like, oh yeah, blah, 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 my yachts and my condos and crap. And so for us, these young dentists were like, gosh, this is the best. This is going to be amazing. We're going to have yachts and whatever. And none of that happened. It was actually I was at the library with my daughter, just looking for kids' books and stuff like that. And I had no idea that there is equal to the number of kids' books that there are in a library. There are an equal number of books about how to run a business, how to be a better leader, how to market your business, how to provide great customer service. I sometimes think like, how the hell did I not know that these existed?
How did I gloss over these for so much time?
I was an entrepreneur and a professional and an adult, and I didn't know that they existed. And so I picked up a couple gems. Do you want to know which ones?
Yeah, go for it.
Should I
share them?
So you've heard of some of these. There's the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Is it Michael Gerber? I don't know. The E-Myth. There was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's this book by this guy named Jeffrey Gitomer called Customer Satisfaction is Worthless, Customer Loyalty is Priceless. And, for whatever reason, my wife and I, we just we just ate up every book we could find. And we just realized everything about the way we were running a practice was wrong. I was extremely guilty about my fees. Every time.
What were some of the big things that you realized looking back you were doing wrong?
Well, leadership was a big one. I was so obsessed with the idea of being nice that I would let team members walk all over me. there was no accountability. And that was a big one. And so I would try to instill certain elements of customer service, and they just wouldn't be followed through by my team. And I was so obsessed with the idea of being nice that I could never actually just look at them and say, listen, this is what I expect. This is how things should go. That was a big one. Number two is this whole idea that as professionals, we need to take pride in our fees and present them with confidence and not be apologetic all the time. And that was something that I had a real problem with. And I think that goes back to that same obsession with trying to be the nice guy, trying to be ultra nice. And therefore, hey, I'm going to do this couple crowns, and it normally costs this much, but guess what? I'm going to do it for this much less.
Right. And when you say that, like, I want to like make that a little more specific for people. Like when you say you're too nice, is that a way of saying that you were too indirect and you had to be more direct?
Very, very indirect, very vague. And I think it's not actually niceness. I was afraid of not looking like the mean guy. Maybe I was just afraid that I would lose loyalty either from my team or from patients if I didn't somehow show that I was willing to get walked all over. And, as I read more, you know what, there's one more book that I want to talk about because it's so good. That book was called Entre Leadership by an author named Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey. I've got that book.
You've heard that? Have you read that?
I've got it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. But anyway, I digress there. That fourth book came to my head just now. I wanted to make sure to mention it. But I think it had nothing to do with being nice. It had to do with just being fearful of losing loyalty, of losing acceptance, whatever it was. And what I found was, as I read more and more, it's not like I became less nice. Like, not at all. I mean, it seemed like my niceness was there. I mean, I was still gregarious. I was still fun to be around. I just made sure that I was setting up systems that made sure that team members were accountable. I was setting up systems where, actually, as far as case presentation went, I just would leave the room when it was time to discuss fees. So a person who actually had that confidence would be in there discussing the fees, which I still am actually, 17 years into practice, it's the same thing. I always leave the room now to present fees, and somebody who's more confident with it stuff does it. And all of those resulted in such an incredible shift in the practice. Actually, I didn't talk much about customer service and marketing.
Yeah, let's talk about that. And I know that with your marketing, like I remember from your presentation, and I looked at your website, like you had some unique stuff. Like you do the seminars and the workshops in the community. Can you make sure you talk about those for us at some point too?
Yeah.
Like your Be Better seminars.
I'll start with that. Oh yeah, okay. You did look at the website. Yeah. So one thing so I've always felt like I was pretty good at public speaking. And so one day I just put together this little PowerPoint presentation called the 10 Habits of Highly Effective Teeth. And really simple, right? Just like the 10 tips on how to have healthy teeth. And I asked different organizations like the Rotary Club or the North Ridgeville Senior Center. Like I went to a gardening club because I think they were just interested in having a speaker come. I went to the local library and I gave this presentation. I did it for free. Actually, not only did I just do it for free, I sometimes paid for everybody to get Panera bread or something like that for free to attend my lecture. And those were so successful. Like I would finish the lecture and immediately afterwards would have 3 or 4 new patients who already had a degree of loyalty towards me, they kind of liked me, and they already had some shred of interest in doing some of the dental treatment that I talked about.
So you were doing these, you were speaking to like an existing group in the community.
Yeah, I did try to just give a lecture, just say, hey, come one, come all to my dental office. I'm going to give this great presentation. Those never worked. I never got a very large turnout when I just advertised hey, this guy, Dr. Gupta, is going to be giving a presentation about teeth, come to this venue. That never worked.
Okay.
Instead, I went and sought out groups that were looking for speakers. And actually, I think you'd be surprised how many groups are out there that totally want a speaker. And so anyway, those lectures, those got stale after a while. I mean, people liked me and they were like, dude, we want to hear you come and speak again, but we've already heard this one. So the next lecture I did was this one called When Did Food Stop Being Food? And it was just about all the like added sugar and like high fructose corn syrup and all that crap that now is in our food that wasn't in there before. And that was really popular. And I was like, dude, I'm onto something here. So as of now, and this is probably 10 years in that whole public speaking thing, I probably put together about 10 different lectures. And my reputation now is at the point where it's kind of nice. I don't really have to work that hard in order to get groups to ask for me, local YMCA or maybe a large business who is trying to reduce their healthcare costs. So they'll come and have different healthcare speakers talk. And so these are great. I mean, I go and speak, but the return is so great because I would say 100% of the time, I'll at least get one or two new patients as a result of these efforts. So that was successful, and I didn't realize how successful it was. And then the other thing is a lot of these groups, they have a health fair once a year, like especially the employers. And so I would just ask if I could have a table at that health fair. And one thing that was really important about this table is I had to make my table like the best table at the whole health fair. So do we have time? Do you want me to share some of the stuff?
Go for it.
Yeah. So this really cool one, we had this disclosing solution that wasn't purple. It was like yellow, and it only illuminated if you shine a black light. And so we would have people come over and we would, wipe all this disclosing solution. You know what that is, right? Remember from middle school and plaque? And then we would show them this black light in a mirror and they would see all the yellow glowing plaque and they'd be like, oh man, it's gross. That was pretty cool. And then somehow that solution was completely discontinued. It was taken off the market. I wonder if it was like, it's probably a carcinogen or something like that. It was probably something horribly bad for people. So then I was like, damn, that sucks. That was like such a compelling reason for people to come to my table. So now what we do is we bring our intraoral camera with us and we hook it into my laptop. And then when people come to our table, we take a picture of their lower anteriors, like the linguals of their lower anterior teeth. And we show them like, come on, like 50% of people have pretty nasty lower anteriors, or at least relative. And so it's pretty fun because then they're like, oh my God, that's my teeth. And we're like, oh yeah, you're gross. But then we would give them a free toothbrush.
Yeah. You just brought some attention. They had some fun.
Whatever, you know what I mean? And that's been a pretty effective way. We always bring a little paper schedule with us to these things. And if a patient's interested, we put them on the schedule as a new patient, right then and there.
Nice.
Those are two of the more unique marketing
things that you've done. Let's see. So what type of systems did you do to improve your case acceptance? You mentioned that a little bit. What did you specifically do to help with case acceptance?
Well, so I have to start with, I got to go back a little bit. Case acceptance, in my opinion, has everything to do with developing like a really high degree of trust with the patient. So D'Angelo, let's say you're a patient in the office. Our phone team has to go through this protocol when you call to make an appointment. And they have to like get to know you, and they, where are you from? Where do you work? Do you have any grandkids? All that kind of stuff, right? They have to get to know you. So you feel like, oh, wow, this is weird. I've never called an office ever before and had the person that interested in getting to know me. That's number one. And then they have to get to know your tooth objectives, right? And so maybe you're just calling for a cleaning, right? Right. That's fine. But let's say, they're kind of trained to ask a few more questions. And so they might ask like, well, how would you rate your teeth on a scale of 1 to 10? And you might say a 10, and that's fine. But a lot of times people say, oh, I would give them an 8 or whatever. And then they say, oh, Why not a 10? What would make them a 10? And then you say, well, I have this one crooked tooth that kind of annoys me. And they're like, oh, tell me more about that. And they go through this series of questions to make it seem as though you call and they're very interested in getting to know you, the person, and your feelings towards your mouth. And all of that conversation, they type it all into the patient note on Dentrix. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the first person to see
so
them,
this is like
usually
rapport building with the patient before they've even met the doctor. So the staff's already
before
building
they come.
rapport with them, right?
Then when they walk in, our protocol is like really over the top. Like when they walk in, our front desk team is not allowed to stay seated. Our front desk team has to get up, walk out of the reception area, sit down with them, you know, shake their hand. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Can I make you some coffee? Can I get you water? That kind of stuff, right? And then, oh, we have some stuff for you to fill out. Let me sit down next to you and go over it with you. They're very, very over the top. And then we've added things over the years. Like now they're required to compliment them, which I find kind of funny because like they say the same thing every time, you know, they're always like, oh, I love your shoes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, it's part of the training, you know, it's part when we have our staff meetings, we say, okay, you have to do this, you know, sorry. So they have to, you know, make the patient feel very, very well cared for and give them a compliment and get to know them more, right? Then when the first clinical contact comes, whether it's the dental assistant or the hygienist at the morning huddle has already shared the note that was written by the front desk team, okay? So the hygienist at the morning huddle has already told us, like, okay, I have this new patient. It looks like Amber took the phone call. This lady, she just moved here from Columbus. She seems really nice. She has 3 kids. One of them is graduating high school this year. She's actually just here for a cleaning, but she says that she's a little overdue. She seems really nice, right? So the hygienist has already shared with that with us at the morning huddle. And then when the hygienist actually sits down with the patient, it's part of her protocol to kind of regurgitate some of those notes. And the reason that that's so important is because we never want a patient to feel like they shared a bunch of info with one person and they have to reshare all that info
with everyone else.
So the hygienist basically regurgitates the note and is like, all right, you know, now I'm going to do the normal dentistry stuff, you know, perio chart, x-rays, intraoral photos, whatever. And then they have their own little conversation about the patient's long-term goals with their teeth and their stuff like that. And then when I'm called in or my wife is called in as the dentist, then the hygienist now has to regurgitate not only the initial stuff, but then the entire conversation she's had with me. I'm sorry, not with me, with the patient. Okay. So now a lot of times I'll walk in and I'll just sit down because I know that my hygienist is going to talk for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, you know, just about the whole spiel. And of course, she's going to include the stuff that's new. Like I did a perio chart and we talked about the importance of periodontal therapy. And I took a picture of tooth number 19. I showed him some of the cracks that were in that tooth, blah, blah, blah. So the hygienist is sharing the new stuff, right? And then I come in and I just have to be this really nice person, you know, and be really warm towards this patient. And then when I make my recommendations, the hygienist's job is to go to the front desk and bring in somebody from the front. And I say, now this part, it's very trained. I mean, we do this so often at staff meetings. I go, Amber's my front desk person. Mm-hmm. I say, Amber, this is D'Angelo. D'Angelo, you might have met Amber when you first came in. Amber's kind of the expert around here when it comes to fitting all of these treatment recommendations into the patient's budget and the schedule. She'll be able to explain all the insurance ramifications if there are any. She'll be able to make this really comfortable for you. And then I turn to Amber and I say, Amber, we've recommended, you know, periodontal therapy, 2 crowns, a filling, whatever, right? And then I turn to the patient and I say, do you feel like I got everything? And usually the patient's like, no, I think you got it all. And then I leave. Then I'm done. I'm gone. I'm seeing another patient. I'm doing something. And ever since we instituted this protocol, and it really takes a lot of work. I mean, it really took a lot of training for all of us to be on the same page and be good at this. Our treatment fee presentation percentage it's higher than I could have ever imagined. I mean, we have a really, really high case acceptance rate. And I think it's because the patient feels tremendously cared for. Even when a patient is completely broke and they're like, dude, I would love to do this, but I mean, there's no way I can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
At least they are walking out feeling good about us. You know what I'm saying? At least they're like, dude, one of these days, I really want to get this stuff done.
If they ever get it done, it's going to be with you. That's how they're walking out.
That's a nice feeling, because I mean, we're never going to be at 100%, but the patients they feel really cared for. And I think that's probably the key to case presentation is, number one, making people feel like they really matter. And number two is training the whole team so you just get it right. Because man, you can't do this at a morning huddle. You can't just be like, all right, today we're going to start doing this. I mean, it took a lot of practice for us to get good at it and get through some of the awkwardness and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
so it sounds like basically you've systematized a rapport building process. So you've got a system to build rapport with every patient so that you're consistently making sure that the patient feels, trust in your office and comfortable and cared about. And then when you tell them they need dental work, they're like, all right, I like these guys. Yeah.
I like how you said that. That was well said, D'Angelo. We systematized the rapport building process.
Yep. And that's part of like the consistent customer service that you mentioned before, right? Like just consistently talking about it in meetings and like having a plan.
That's correct. And I really can't, there's more customer service items that you can come up with as the years go on. Like, little things like walking patients out with an umbrella when it's raining, or one thing that we decided to do a couple of years ago that people really like is when it's cold outside. Where do you live, D'Angelo?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, you're in Ann Arbor. Okay, cool. So when it's cold outside and the day is almost done, we have one person come and collect the keys from all the patients that are still there and start their car. And some people are not interested. Some people are like, dude, I'm not going to give you my keys. That's fine. But we go and we start everybody's cars so that when they're done with their dental work, their cars are going to be warm and hopefully defrosted. And so there's a lot of other little customer service elements that you can come up with over time, but those are all gimmicks. Those can be systematized, but they're all gimmicks. You know what I'm saying? They're just ways to make you hard. What's not a gimmick is what you said, systematizing rapport. Is making it so that people feel special. And if you get good at that, then it's like, oh, okay, let's come up with some other cute ways to make people more loyal to us. But this is where you start. I think I missed you. I'm sorry.
So a lot of people listening are people who are interested in practice ownership. So dental students or new grads who don't own a practice yet, but they really want to. When you were in your residency, you had that guy who was like, oh, just do it. Just go for it. It's going to be great. Obviously, you feel like he missed telling you something because it didn't start off great. So how would you convey that message differently than that guy conveyed the message to you? As far as getting into ownership, but being prepared.
So let me, actually, I regret only talking about how bad this guy was. I'm actually thankful that he gave me the advice he gave, because being a dental practice owner, in my opinion, is like the best way to be a professional, like out there, right? I mean, most of my friends are accountants, attorneys, physicians, etc. And like nobody's got it as good as dentists do. And here's what I mean. Number one is we don't work 5 days a week, by and large. You know what I'm saying? You're a lot younger than me, D'Angelo, but I mean, when you get to be my age, I mean, I doubt there's too many 40-year-olds people in their 40s on this podcast. What is it? Is it a podcast or what are we on right now?
It's a webinar.
It's a webinar. Okay.
Roll with it.
See, I'm expressing how old I am. So when you're as old as I am, like, dude, stuff just starts hurting, right? You know, like my wrists or whatever, my lower back. And it's awesome that I don't feel any compulsion to work 5 days a week. I don't work even 4 days a week. I work 3.5. And you can do that and still make a very competitive income, which is amazing. Number two is, as a practice owner, you get to surround yourself with people of your choosing. So if you're the type of person who just doesn't want to be around like negative poopy pants, you don't have to be. You just, you make it clear what your expectations are of your team and the attitudes that you want them to have. And if anybody doesn't have that attitude, they just can't, they can't work for you. You know what I'm saying? And so as a business owner, it's your choice. You pick who you're around, right? And so in that respect, I love the fact that I'm a dental practice owner. The problem with this guy is that he never told me to put a lot of effort into marketing. He never told me to put a lot of effort into customer service. He just said, open your doors and be a great dentist, and they're just going to flock in. And I think that was poor advice. I think that if a person is going to take the plunge and open their own office, they really, really should put a lot of effort in creating a marketing plan, a customer service plan, a leadership protocol. And one thing that I notice about you is you are on the upper echelon of creating accountability with yourself in terms of the amount of money that you spend. Much more so than I was. I got out of school, I didn't realize how easy it is for dentistry, for the cost of being a dentist to sneak up on you. You had that forethought early on in your career. And I think that anybody listening who hasn't yet started their own practice needs to understand that as a business owner, it's your objective to have a business that's profitable. And that means that you can't jump in and get every toy and say yes to every marketing option that's out there and dole out bonuses, etc., until you're actually ready. It's much more important to maybe eliminate whatever debt you have, in my opinion, eliminate whatever superfluous costs that are out there before you start thinking about investing in extra stuff to make your dental office seem more cool. That was a mistake I made and I regret. We borrowed a ton of money to start off, and we put like really sweet equipment in that wasn't necessary. And right. I wish we hadn't. I wish we stayed simple. Those mid-mark chairs are just fine. I don't know why we got the 8X, Now I have 8X, right? Because I'm a decade and a half into practice. I have all the nice stuff now. I could have gotten that stuff a lot sooner if I was just smarter about the amount that I spent in the beginning.
Well, awesome. Ankur, I like to keep these to about 30 minutes, and we're coming right up on that. So I want to thank you for your time. I know that the group's going to appreciate it a lot too, and I really appreciate the advice that you gave me as a student. When you first came and gave your talk, you didn't even know I was sitting out there in the crowd, in the audience as a dental student, and then several years later, here we are again, and as a party note, I want to say thank you.
I do remember you, man. I do remember you. I came and spoke twice. I came and spoke in like some suburb of Detroit, and then you and one of your friends came up to me and you said, come and speak at the dental school.
Yeah.
No, I totally remember that. I had no idea how like incredible you would end up being, but I mean, you're killing it. And so, man, hats off to you.
Okay, Ankur, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk in the future, I'm sure.
You got it. All right, take care, man.
Okay, thanks.